Maybe that. Wow, you all look very beautiful from here. I think I need to stand in this position more often. So, Toastmaster and members and honored guests, my role tonight is to introduce myself to the audience. And to be honest with you, I could do that in 1 minute and sit down, or just one sentence. But because I have 5 minutes to do so, I'm going to talk a little bit about some changes that I've made in my life and how I've benefited, or the lessons I've learned from these changes. The first major changes occurred in 1978, when I guess a few of you weren't even born then. And that was my major change. I got married. That lasted for 21 years, and ended after 21 years, I should say, and after many lessons. I'll tell you about a couple of those later. A few years after that, I changed again to motherhood. My daughter was born. And a few years later, my son was born. So today, I'm a mother of two and a grandmother of two. And then another change occurred in about 1999. I changed residence from Jamaica to Canada. And the fourth change occurred within the last year or so, when I changed from being an employee to being an employer. So what have I learned from my first change, my marriage? Well, it taught me many lessons, but the biggest of all was trust. It taught me trust because for many years I lived in fear. Fear disguised as insecurity and jealousy. I wanted to know where my husband was all the time. I wanted to know who he was talking to. I wanted to see his emails and his contact list. And I realized that that was just stemming from fear. When you trust, you are empowered and the other person is empowered. That other person is empowered to be free, to be themselves, to do the things they like to do and to be themselves. And I became empowered because I learned to practice non-interference. And it has improved our relationship as a result. The change as a mother into motherhood taught me unconditional love. Unconditional love, meaning you need no excuses, you need no reasons, you need no conditions to love. And even when your children get older and do the very opposite of what you would have liked them to do, you still love them anyway. And so my goal is to extend that unconditional love into all my relationships and to the people I meet. Because when you think about it, every individual is somebody's child. The next lesson I learned from my residents was the oneness that exists among all peoples. Coming to Canada into a multicultural environment, I've met so many people, I've made so many friends from across the globe. And I realized that even though there's the individuality among us, we are not separate. It's much like the fingers of your hand. They seem to be separate, but they're just individual fingers. When you move it, they're all connected to the same hand. So our differences should not be reasons to be separated. We are all from the same source, and we are all going back to the same source. And what a world this would be if we were not separated. We would end wars immediately. Poverty would end, famine would end. What did I learn from my change from employee to employer? Well, that was a big one for me. I learned empathy and I learned compassion. I am in the payday loan business. I've been in the payday loan business for 14 years. And I recently acquired my own store. And what I have learned was empathy for people who are really suffering in various ways. For example, there was a customer who was always very sad. He never talked. No matter how I tried to engage him, he never talked. And when I finally got him to talk, I realized he was there because he needed money to fix his car, because he is a single father of 3 daughters, teenage daughters, and he just lost his wife 3 years ago from her battle with cancer. And from talking with him, I got to know his story, I got to know why he was there, and I was able to help him. And he's happier for it. He was able to cope as a result of it. So my friends, how have you changed? Or better yet, more important, what have you learned from the changes in your life? George Bernard Shaw says, progress is impossible without change. And if you can't change your mind, you can't change anything. Thank you.